Welcome to Career Success. Here we are going to look now at the questions to ask interviewers. It's important to understand that this is a dialogue. When you are in an interview, it is a conversation. And so what can help take the tenseness and some of the anxiety out of this process is to understand that it is a dialogue and that there's going to be an exchange of information. And so you are going to say some things, and then the employer or the interviewer is going to say some things, and then you respond to each other, and then you may have questions along the way. So rather than seeing this as a highly mechanical experience, with practice, you will come to see this more organically and feel more comfortable just having a conversation. And we want to understand what this conversation is about. Why are you having this conversation? The conversation, in terms of the job interview, is to really see if the opportunity is a fit for you and if the company, the interviewer, the employer sees that you could be a fit for the organization. So you're trying to find this match. And through the conversation, you have a way of being able to present your content and your person to try to make the best match as possible. And likewise, in an ideal situation, the employer is also looking to do the same. So before we get into questions that you can ask interviewers, the question for you is, did you do your company research? If you've not seen our video on company research, how to do, I recommend you check that out. We cover a number of these spaces here. You want to look at company websites. You want to look at the mission statement, the About Us page, blog, press release, the news, somewhere on the news. This can be media, television news, or this can be press release, internet news, places that they've been featured, their careers page, social media, and last but not least, having informational interviews where you are talking directly to people who could be related to the organization, maybe currently working there, or maybe past employees or past stakeholders. These individuals can provide you with a certain level of understanding internally because they have been connected to the company in some way. So let's assume that you have done this kind of research. You've gone through all of these bullet points, and you have recognized that you feel a little bit more ready to undergo the interview stage. You also now, based on this, want to have questions prepared so that your conversation is more directed, more focused, and you show that you're interested. So I put this in underline and in quotes because this tends to be one of the first responses when asked why should a candidate ask questions to show you're interested. Really want to emphasize here that it is a conversation, and the more authentic, more genuine you are about this process, the easier it will be to show interest. So you don't have to force yourself to demonstrate that you are interested in the conversation. How you engage the conversation, your energy, positivity, mental state, and what you say will all indicate this. So let this not be the main reason why you're asking questions. There's some important points here. Additional research to learn if there's a match for you. You genuinely ought to want to know if this is an opportunity that you should invest more time in. So asking them questions directly while you have them live and organically responding to you is a way to do this. Asking questions also demonstrates active thinking. And so this means active thinking rather than passive thinking, meaning you are proactively considering ideas, options, subjects, things to do, curiosities. You are actively putting forth these ideas into the conversation. It can be, and not always, but it can be a positive indicator that if you are an engaged professional at the interview, then it is possible that you would be an engaged employee or engaged professional on the job, that you would apply this active thinking and curiosity and drive to your work. Asking questions also generates new conversation topics. You may not realize that you had a curiosity about something, and then it comes up because you asked a question. Another idea comes up because they've responded to your question. They've given you a new piece of information that you then are curious about and you'd like to ask more about that. Asking questions, also a great way, practice for asking about what you want. This is subtle, but when you do ask a question, you're asking a question and you're at the same time saying what you want. If you ask a question about what work-life balance may look like, what values your curiosity or you're curious about, then you are indirectly saying that you care about work-life balance or you care about certain values. You are asking for what you want by asking the question. Let's move into the categories here. For our space in software engineering, we're looking at 3 categories that will help you: technologies, professional development, and company culture. Within these categories of questions can be other subtopics and additional questions. So in this presentation, we're not going to go too heavy into a ton of questions. We want you to have the idea that there are 3 categories that you can focus on. And these 3 will give you a more holistic perspective about what the company is about, what they offer. So when we look at technologies, these could be questions about the systems, the workflow, how they work. Professional development, we would be looking at growth for you, skills for you, and opportunities for you. Regarding the company culture, we're looking at traditions, looking at the mission statement. We're looking at how aligned that mission statement is with everything else that they do. We're also looking at the values. What does this company care about? What do they try to promote? What is a part of their purpose? What language do they use when they're communicating their culture? And their environment. So how are they physically set up so that they can execute on these values and create traditions? Let's look at some tech questions. Number 1, what technologies will I be learning in the first 30 days? A very direct question. Your questions need not have to be super advanced. They don't have to be complicated. They can be direct and simple. The idea is you want this information. So what technologies will I be learning in the first 30 days? Your first 30 days, considering to be your probationary period or your evaluation period, your observational period, these 30 days can span out to about 60 to 90 days. And we say that because typically it takes a professional about 3 months, sometimes 3 to 6, to become effective at the job. Even if you have experience in the role or in the industry, you've done the role somewhere else, to be able to convert your skill set into the new work environment may take some time. So it is not a testament to your inability, slow learning, ineffectiveness to your failure, but the time period tends to be about 3 to 6 months, where the professional reaches a stage where they then become effective at the job. And by effective, then you can reach a point where you begin to innovate in the job. So given this first 30 days, your first month or so, what kind of tech will you be exposed to? Another question, what tech stack do you use? And you can allow them to describe what that is. That'll give you a sense of something about their software environment. What's your process for introducing new engineers to your systems? And this also can connect to a development question. How do you get onboarded? What process, if any, is in place so that you go in not knowing the stuff, you then can come to know the stuff? Is there something prepared? Is it concrete and is it precise? Based on the responses to these questions, you'll have a better idea of how you will actually be entering the company and dealing with their technology. If we look at professional development, what are the growth paths for someone in this role? And this role would be whatever it is you're interviewing for. Let's presume here it's a software engineer or software developer. What are the growth paths? Meaning, if you start as a software engineer, what are the opportunities for your progression, your growth? How do you excel? And if you excel, what doors are open for you? What are the possibilities? Additionally, what options are there for supporting education? Not always asked about, But you can inquire about educational opportunities. Do you support education? Do you support going to conferences? Do they provide stipends? Do they have some type of fund, a professional development fund that will support you if you wanted to pursue a certificate, if you wanted to take an online course, if you wanted to go to a workshop, and there's a ticket price on that, or if you wanted to go to these things during the daytime, and it may take maybe 30 minutes to an hour of your workday. Do they support having their staff in these kinds of activities? This is the intent to know. What emerging skills would you like to see in your engineers? This can be another way of asking them what kind of skills do they actually want to support their engineers on. This also would indicate a gap. If they have a gap, what kind of work style, flow, skills, what are they looking to develop if they are seeing this as a gap? Let's look at the company culture. A few questions here. How would you describe the work culture? You can allow that interviewer to talk about it from their perspective. How would they talk about the culture to someone who's not familiar with it? You can listen to some of the keywords, commentary, feedback that they are giving you from their perspective. You can also ask, what do you value most about the culture here? Either the one or the two, you can exchange those. And the value most would not mean that they don't value other things. It just allows them to highlight the experiences that they find most valuable here. What gets you excited about working at the company? Another opportunity for them to talk about what they think is special at the organization. And then also, what are some traditions the company has established? If you ask these kinds of questions, and if you're seeing that the employer is having a challenge answering them, it could be for a few reasons. One could be they just may not be that connected to the culture. In that sense, they may not be doing a good job at being able to translate that understanding to you. Another is they may want to talk a lot about this because they are genuinely excited, enthusiastic about the work that they do and where they are, and they want you to really experience it as well. So remember, this is a conversation, right? And the two-way street is you are putting your best foot forward. This organization, in an ideal form, would also be putting their best foot forward for you. So this information ought not to be difficult to obtain when you ask these questions. And then some general practice, right? Have questions to ask of all practices. To not have questions at all really does indicate that you are not exhibiting an active mind, right? An active curiosity, demonstrating a passive thought process and sort of going through the motions of the experience. Having not worked at the company, there are multiple pieces of knowledge that you might not know, and so there is a huge space for curiosity and asking questions to learn more. So your questions can be written on a notepad. If you attend your interview, you can bring a notepad with you. Ideally, you won't use your phone to be typing in notes. This poses a potential distraction. Other tabs and apps open, notifications and such. So a small notepad, simple. You can have that there with you and have your questions written down so that you can ask them. You can also be asked, throughout the interview. So you can be asked questions throughout the interview, and you can also ask the interviewer questions as well throughout the interview. You don't have to wait until the very end to say, yes, I have some questions. I would also encourage this practice where you are able to better take control of your conversations. You are better able to confidently direct the nature of the conversation when you ask questions in between rather than pretty much sitting back and just listening to the interviewer talk and then leave the room for questions at the end. You can direct, using questions, you can direct the focus to something that is important to you, and it doesn't require you to interrupt, but you can sort of assert your question once you sense that the interviewer has completed a statement, you can insert your question rather than continuing along that same line of thought. Insert the question, answers the question, perhaps then you can return to your topic. But practice not just waiting until the very end to ask your questions. Another is taking handwritten notes during your conversation. So once you ask the question and then they provide you with an answer, you can jot down a few notes as you're listening, just as they would be taking notes on you as they are listening to you. Remember, this is a two-way street, it is a conversation. And then also think of what is genuinely important to you. I referenced the key values. We utilize this as a recommendation quite often because of just how effective the site has been put together regarding many of the values that under certain umbrella terms like quote unquote work-life balance and childcare or 401ks, these higher tiered values or ideas or interests sort of encapsulate larger concepts. So key values can help you to better understand what may be important to you if you already know what it is or you don't know and you're having a challenge articulating. The site will help you. So think of what is genuinely important to you, utilize the key values, and then be prepared to conceive of your questions when we're looking at the spaces. And I'll just return a bit to the categories, right? Technologies, professional development, and company culture. Make sure you have questions for each of these categories. Practice them, rehearse them, have your notes, do your research, as we've mentioned before. Looking at these here, these categories, refer back to our company research video, and you should be well prepared to engage in a conversation that is of a meeting of the minds between you and the interviewer. And in an ideal scenario, you'll have a match, there's some rapport, and you can move on to the next stage. Any questions, feel free to reach out to the Career Success team. Be well.